Good morning. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning to talk about what's new in the ArcGIS Data Interoperability Extension at 10.1. My name is Dale Lutz. I'm a co-founder and vice president of Safe Software.
My name is Dmitry List. I'm a scenario creation and testing analyst at Safe Software.
And Dmitry recently did a bunch of work with the LiDAR stuff, which we're going to be talking about today. And in fact, Dmitry, you're coming right back to the same place, same time on Thursday morning, aren't you?
Yes, I'm coming, so please join us for a LiDAR webinar on Thursday.
Yes, we're going to talk about specifically more to do with the LiDAR capabilities in the Data Interop 10.1. I'm also joined this morning by two of SAFE's illustrious specialists in all things Esri and data. Steve McCabe.
Good morning, everyone.
So Steve has done a lot of work, particularly with ArcGIS for local government.
Yep.
And at the very end, we'll give a little teaser about that. And Steve, you're coming back in this same place in a few weeks to do a webinar, right?
That's right. August 30th, we're going to have a local government webinar related to what we're doing with local government. Scott Oatman and Steve Grisset are going to be joining us as well.
Good. And Mark Stokes, Manager of Professional Services.
Good morning, everyone.
And Mark, you're not coming back here at all to do a webinar.
I'll probably join Steve on his local government.
Good. I wouldn't want you to be left out. Mark is expert in really all things FME, and if you have, particularly he loves tricky XML-related questions. That's what he said to me. Sure hopes he gets one. So as we're going today, don't be afraid to type anything that comes to mind and pester these guys. At the very end, I'm going to ask them to tell us what the most interesting question they had was. One time we had a question about like how heavy is a Brazilian tree sparrow or something like that. And that doesn't really count because I don't think these guys knew the answer, although they can consult Google on the internets to find out. So who are we and why are we even giving this webinar? We are Safe Software. We've been around since 1993. We build a product called FME, which we say powers the flow of spatial data. But in particular, relevant for today, is that a very full subset of FME is the Data Interoperability Extension that we're talking about. And so today, even though you'll see FME icons and you'll maybe hear us slip and talk about FME things, all the stuff you're going to see is all to do with the Data Interop, which is sold by Esri and through their distribution channel, and is a version of FME that is fairly full-featured that does work inside of ArcGIS. So that's what we're talking about, is the 10.1 interoperability extension. And why did we think it was worth an update? Dmitry, do you know the 10.0 version of the interop extension, do you know what version of FME it was built on?
It was built on FME 2010.
2010, and what year is it now?
Well, 2012.
2012. So that's 2 years of development has gone in since the last data interop extension that some of you may have had. And so there are a very large number of significant changes on a whole number of fronts that we thought we'd try to illustrate to you today by looking at a number of different use cases. So we feel this is a very significant upgrade for data interop customers. And that's, I've already been using my shorthand. ArcGIS Data Interoperability Extension is a fairly big mouthful, and so especially this early in the morning, we don't tend to say that. We don't like using the acronym that comes from Data Interoperability Extension, or DI. We just don't think that's a very positive, like the marketing people, Roger in marketing said it's just no good. So we came up with something else. Data Interop is what we will refer to it as. You can call it anything you want, just don't call it late for lunch. So, and with that, we're going to go out to the polls, and I'm going to try my hand at that just to get a sense for our audience to find out what you are using. So let's see, what one are you using right now? So wow, a lot of you are using 10.1. I'm very impressed, and there's actually a fair chunk of you that aren't using any FME technology, and so thanks very much for tuning in today. I hope you're going to find this worthwhile. So we'll let a few more of the votes come in. Actually, Data Interop started in 9.0, and its birthday's coming up. We have a big party here at SAFE every year in October, which corresponds to the first release of that. And then there was 9 all the way to 9.3, and then the 10 was based on FME 2010, and 10.1 is based on FME 2012. SP1, actually. All right, we're going to close the polls there and share the results to everybody. So you can see that, that there's a big chunk of you on 10. 10 is the plurality. If we were doing a British kind of electoral system, they would take the seat. Otherwise, if we had a runoff election, it'd be interesting to see where it would end up. But a lot of you not using anything at all, and so again, thanks for tuning in. So we'll continue on. Oh my goodness, Dmitry, there's a snap demo already.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay, so this is a demo I thought I'd put together that just illustrates, starting from basically scratch, how we actually accomplish things. And so I've got ArcMap here, and I thought I would just take a look in this folder called Snap Demo. I've got a few things, and Dmitry may recognize some of this stuff, and I'm just going to drag them in here. So we got this ortho photo of a particular area. We've got a LASD file of some LiDAR, and I've got a project area in a file geodatabase. Oh, come on. Oh, yeah, because I don't know what I'm doing. I need to do this. There we go. Okay, so these are the three things, and basically I think what we're told, Dmitry, is we need to create a single LAS file of this area in question. Have you heard of this problem before?
Yes, so why don't you try clipping it?
Okay, so I need to clip the LiDAR. One thing that if we dig in a little bit, there was a LASD there that was a LAS data set. But if I actually go in and look, oh my goodness, there's a whole bunch of LAS files there. And I'm required to only output one. So I'm going to have to somehow merge all those babies together. So this is the data that we had to work with. So we're going to remember what that looks like. I think I can get rid of it now, if that's okay with you. Yeah, I won't bother saving. And so now I'm going to go over to here into my our catalog where I got a toolbox with a bunch of things, but nothing for the snap demo. And so one of the tricks I'm going to show, I find it the easiest to have a blank spatial ETL tool, and I made that earlier by right-clicking on a toolbox and saying New Spatial ETL Tool. That's the key functionality, or one of the key functionalities that the Data Interop adds. I made a blank one because I don't like going through that wizard, and I just copy it, and then I go here and I paste it, and then I rename it, and just like that, okay, I'm going to call this Snap Demo. All right, so now I've got a new ETL tool, and I'm going to edit it. And here comes the workbench. That's a key part of the Data Interop. And it's thinking about getting started, and it looks like it's happy. That's always a relief. And it's a workbench that actually does nothing. It's a blank one. And so now we can start to add things into it. And so I'm going to go out here, and I'm going to add this geodatabase, first of all. And that's... And actually, this is interesting. In the Data Interop, there's two file geodatabase readers. Let's just type in file geodatabase through the API or through ArcObjects. So we'll take this one. And there we go. That's our project area. That's the boundary that we had. Let's see. I also had, let's see, these LAS files. So I want to bring them in. And actually, I'm just going to say star.las. That'll pull in all the LAS files from this directory. Okay, so I'm basically setting up my input. So there's my LiDAR. Whoops, I'm going to put this here and here. And then the other thing I had, if I recall correctly, there was an orthophoto that we had of the area. So let's bring that in as well. And that looks good. All right, so we got the GeoTIFF as well. So that's one thing that's also new. There are some raster capabilities in the Data Interop as well. So we can read, for example, GeoTIFFs and a few other things. So I got these things, and you said, oh, I need to, first of all, there's 20 or so LiDAR files. I want to combine them into one. And to do that, I use what we call a transformer. And there's a gallery here of all of them. And if I look, for example, down here, they're categorized a little bit. If I look for ones to do with point clouds or LiDAR, there's a bunch. And so I can go and drag out, for example, the point cloud combiner. And there's a pink dot. I don't know, was the pink dot in FME 2010?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it was. So we can go and connect the pink dot to here. And just like that, we have a connection. So that's kind of nice. The other thing I can do is just type in the canvas. So I've got that thing selected. I think I need also a clipper, you said.
Yes.
So clipper. And I can just start typing. and hit enter, and look at that. This was selected and it made the connection. Sadly, I don't think I want it to be the clipper though, so I can put it as the clip E, because our project boundary is the clipper. So now we've combined our LiDAR, we've made a clipper, and now I actually want to just write some LAS files. So I have to add a writer here to write LAS, LAS, and I'm going to put that, I don't want to put it in my KML directory. I have an output, I have a big obnoxious output directory here, and so we'll put it there. And I have to name this thing, so I'm going to name it our project, project. There we go. And I'm going to take the clipped inside part of this. That should be right, don't you think?
Yeah.
All right. And now, I also wanted to do a little bit of showing off, because in addition to creating our output LiDAR file, and I should also mention one thing that we do is if I look at this LiDAR writer over here, there's an option here to write a LAS data set at the same time so that ArcGIS can read that. And I'm just going to name it also project. Actually, I'll name it with a capital P so it lines up. And that will make a LAS D so that when we're all done, we'll have everything right. But I also want to do something a little bit showing off. I want to produce a 3D PDF of this area at the same time. Does that seem like a good idea?
Yeah, for a quick overview, PDF is a wonderful format.
So to do that, we need to make first a surface model of the area. And to do that, I need to put these in there as the points. So now I got a surface model. I also want to drape over the image. So I'm going to take a copy, Control C, Control V is fast. I'm going to do a clipper here and clip out the geotiff for this area. And then I'm going to do something called an appearance adder that will take and slap. I got to look in this tin. Do I have the good 6 is my tolerance. That seems good. I'm going to take the surface. That's my geometry. I'm going to take the clipped part of the image and put that on the front. Take a quick peek coming from the top, all looking good. Let's go and add a writer to that. PDF, let's try. We're going to do 3D PDF. And my friend Bruce says that this is the only way to make 3D PDF with Esri ArcGIS 10.1. So I'm going to call it project.pdf. And yes, I want to add a feature type, and we'll call it project. Boy, we like the word project today. And I'm going to take and output the geometry there. And so got these things all made. I think it's time to save this and run it. And we'll watch, because as it runs, this beautiful symphony that is the log file rolls by. Lots of things happening, PDFs being output, and we're done. And so we'll take a look at the numbers here just to make sure we believe. So 20 pieces of LiDAR went in, combined into one. We clipped and one thing went out, and the same thing, a copy of it went down to generate a 10. Went into the appearance adder, should be a 1 on there, yep. And we clipped out the geotiff, one comes in and one goes out. It all looks like it worked. And now for the true test, we will go and look at my desktop in the snap demo directory, the output directory. I see that there's a LAS D here, and if I preview this thing, there it is. So that looks pretty good. That looks like a LAS file to me. And lastly, I want to take a look in the output directory here. Relief when I see that there's a PDF there. And there it is. Wow, that popped up quickly. And we can zoom in. So we're done. We've made it, and off we go. So we are done with that. We can close off this workbench, and yeah, we will save it. And so now we've got that tool there. And if I ever wanted to run that tool again, I can double click it here, and I could use it with a different clipping rectangle, or sorry, clipping boundary. I've just filled that in. This is now a tool that can be used in Model Builder, and these parameters can be altered and run over and over and over again to your heart's content. So that is the snap demo, Dmitry.
Yeah, maybe we have to know that you don't any plugins for Adobe Reader to view that PDF 3D file. It's available on any machine, so just make it and send it to anyone, and they will be able to read it.
Right, and so I'll also mention that there's a whole bunch more that the data interop can do with LiDAR. And Dmitry, that's what you're going to be showing in 2 days' time. In fact, I think you take this demo and you do some nicer things like actually add color, for example.
Yes, yes.
And
a few surprises.
There's a few surprises, so you'll have to tune in for that. and see a whole bunch more that's possible to do. And also, I'm quite pleased with how nicely we integrate with ArcGIS there, and that we produce the last D file so you can instantly use that resulting LiDAR. We support some different formats of LiDAR too, which I didn't show today at all. So that was the Snap demo. In terms of the data interop stepping up, what is it really about? Well, there's 3 pieces to it. Direct reading of data, translating data quickly without changing much, and then the transform. And that's worth 2 boxes because I think it's twice as powerful at least as the other bits of functionality. So again, we can directly read all kinds of formats into ArcGIS without translating them. We can do quick translations, or we can do whole-scale data model transformation, like what I just did there, where I was really creating a much more valuable output product that could be used downstream. So there's a number of data types, and we saw us working with them: CAD, GIS, raster to some degree. Databases can be loaded and read. Web formats can be used, the GeoJSONs, the KMLs. XML, I know Mark is anxious for questions on XML. Point clouds you saw, and 3D and BIM. And you know what, Dmitry? I don't have a single BIM example or 3D today. But if you are someone that's interested in that, we did a 3D webinar, and you can look in our webinar archive, and we'll give you the link later and see the kinds of things that are possible there. All right, so that's the types of data, and we're going back to our polls. And I'm going to ask, what types of data are you interested in? In fact, I'm asking, what types of data do you work with currently? So this is a multiple choice. I think just about, looks like everybody works with, oh, no, there's a few people that don't work with GIS data. So thanks for tuning in on this webinar. Wow, I'm making jokes about XML, Mark, but actually it's looking pretty strong here in the polling in early results. And actually 3D is as well. Wow, this is a very, this is a data diverse group, a group really of what I'd call data jockeys. That's what these people are, I can tell. And I'm going to close the poll there. So thank you very much. And we'll share these results and take a peek at this. Almost everybody looking at LiDAR. So honestly, folks, if you're looking at LiDAR, you owe it to yourselves to tune into Dmitry in a couple days' time, because you'll see a lot of power that we bring to the table in the ArcGIS universe there. I am surprised by the number of XMLers out there. I may have to sing. I know an old lady who swallowed a fly for them. And there's 9% of you don't use GIS at all. So that's pretty good. Thanks for tuning in. All right. So in terms of data interop, you know, I had our guys do a count, and I was shocked to see that there's 266 formats in it at 10.1. So that's pretty amazing. And I know each of you, though, will only use about 3 of them. So the problem is that there is a complete list. If you go to FME Lee interop formats, you can get the complete list there, and it's a searchable list. Hey, you know what? I'm going to break from script and actually fire it up. If you go there, you can see this, and you can search for, let's see, like UFO, for example, one of my favorite ones. And in fact, it is supported in the Data Interop extension. And this will tell you if it's something that's not an interop, but in the full FME, you can see that as well. If you search, for example, for Map 3D, yeah, it's not there at all because it's not in the, oh, there it is, Map 3D. So Map 3D, not in the interop, but in the full FME itself. So anyway, that's the formats, lots to choose from. We'll get rid of Chrome and go back. And in terms of the 10.1, what was added? So there's quite a list here. Dmitry, from this list, what do you think is your most favorite or powerful one?
Well, as anyone can guess, I think point cloud formats are my favorite, as well as Google Fusion tables.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the point cloud XYZ would be in there. We do like to say that in this 10.1, the cat came back. Little reference to a great Canadian song there, but column line text, and I think I'll actually show an example of that a little bit later if I have time. But it's useful. A lot of you in oil and gas, for example, end up dealing with column-aligned types of file formats. Very useful. So these are the new ones. Civil 3D is only able to read the civil objects from Civil 2009. There's a good chance that the next data interop would be able to handle all civil things. We are looking at that for FME 2013, the next release. We saw already the Spatial ETL tools and how the graphical interface works for creating data flows from source to destination. The key thing there is these blue things that we call transformers. They let you rearrange data, and I've got a total for you. There's 342 transformers, a lot. And again, if we click this button here, we go back to our friends on our website, and you can see all of these transformers in all their glory. And I don't even know what happens when you click on it. Whoa, there's something for my people to fix. The link doesn't go anywhere. But anyway, we can at least get the list there and see what they all are. So that's very powerful, all the things that can be created. In 10.1, here's a list of the new ones. Dmitry, once again, I'm going to go out to you, and I'm going to take the point cloud ones off the table because I know that those would be the shoe-ins for your favorites. So there's about 8 or 9 of them off the table. But if you have the rest of them, what would you go with?
Well, we have a few generalization transformers, such as Charbin generalizer, amalgamator. These are really great transformers.
Right. I like these stylers for DGN, for example. And there was also some stylers that have been in there for a while for KML. And these SQL ones. There's a couple of SQL ones that are fun. SQL Creator, SQL Executor. If you're needing to work with databases, they're definitely fun ones as well. Okay. Well, I won't even mention the XML ones, although there are quite a lot of XML ones. We have a webinar archived. If you are an XML fan, you can listen to Don. Actually, I think there's at least 2, maybe 3 XML.
At least 2. Yeah.
Reading, writing, and XML arithmetic. We should do one on that. One thing that we're always proud of at SAFE is taking performance of our products seriously. And in 10.1, the transformations on average run 13% faster. So we track that very carefully, running thousands of tests on a regular basis, and very proud and happy with the improvements there. So now we're going to ask a couple questions. If you are using Data Interop, what functionality have you actually used? So we talked about the direct read of file formats. You can also directly read databases. There's quick import and export, which lets you quickly bring things in and out of ArcGIS. Or you can fire up the Workbench and do Spatial ETL Tools. And you know what? I'm very excited and happy with these results because I'm seeing, I was afraid that a lot of folks didn't know about the Spatial ETL Tools. It's a little bit obscure on how to get into that, but that's honestly where the power lies. And so let's just let this go a couple more seconds as folks ponder their answers. All right, we're going to close the poll there. And okay, and we'll share these results. So pretty even. Direct read in fact takes the lead. So that's good that we put a lot of effort into that, and glad to see it. A lot of people are reading databases too, so that's really great. Quick import and export, a lot of that going on, and actually a good spread of all the functionalities. So thanks very much for that. So in terms of direct read, let's go take a peek at how that actually works. What that means is inside of our catalog or anywhere, you can just read anything that's there. So if we go down and look at these government counties, well, that's in shapefile, so that isn't that exciting. I'll pick a different one. EPA, here's some kind of GML. And there it is, the results of that GML, and we can go and get the info on this thing. What do we got? So facilities, URL, and a bunch of things like that. In fact, I can click on that. What's going to happen? Here we go. And it's some kind of report. So that's pretty cool. We read that and went all the way to some kind of a browser. So you can just wander around in these things, and there's, well, the DGN and DXF, that would be done by the built-in stuff in Esri. There's a DEM in there. In the emergency side of things, Oh, that was a VCT. I remember that. That's I believe that's Idrisi format. So all these sorts of things. One thing that is new in this data interop is AXF format, and tip of the hat to the newly acquired by Esri folks at MapTel down in Melbourne, who built a reading plugin. So if you're doing AXF stuff, you can read data right directly and use it in ArcGIS through the data interop. You do have to install the SQL Server Compact Edition runtime, which I found out late last night is no longer available on Microsoft's website. So we have to come up with a knowledge base article to tell you how to get it, other than writing to your friend Phil Vera at 11 p.m. at night and seeing if he's got a copy of it. So that's the direct read. There's also this ability to add what we call an interoperability connection, and you can double click on there. And those of you using databases, that's how you'd connect to PostGIS or anything that needs, or WFS, anything that needs parameters. And so you fill in that, and then bang, you get another connection here that you can then look at. This was a GML file, and I'm just going to show you can edit these things later. And one reason why you might is if you take a look, there's so many levers and so on when you're connecting to GML that sometimes you might need to do that. The world actually has a lot of bad GML files, and we make it easy for you to deal with them. So that's it on direct read. The next thing to mention is just the quick import and export. And I won't actually run these because they didn't change much at 10.1. But if you go to the system toolboxes, there's the data interoperability tools one, and here's our friend the quick export, where you can just add a bunch of layers, and then you define an output location. That's better than nothing, you hope. The null is the default, which would accomplish absolutely nothing for you, but you could run it. And so this lets you basically mirror something that's in ArcGIS out to something else. And the quick import lets us bring in any data set that data interop can know about and output it to a geodatabase somewhere. So that's what those tools are all about. But we think that the main power of data interop and the main place where there's interesting things that changed is in the arena of the spatial ETL tools. And this diagram is meant to say that the data flowing through those ETL tools can be very complex, and you can do many things on the way by. And so now we're going to switch gears, and I'm going to go to just a series of canned demos that will try to illustrate some interesting points along the way to see what's going on. So CAD to GIS. Let's see what we've got here. And let me look at the raw materials. Let's see, desktop, CAD to GIS. Common thing that people are doing, oh, okay, I know this thing. If we take a look at it, let's go look in our catalog. One thing you always do is take a quick peek at your input data. So let's go here and let's see, CAD to GIS. And I'm going to take a look at my DWG file. It should have some annotation in there. These are water meters. Let's just zoom in somewhere so the folks at home can see. A bunch of water meters in there. And let's see, a bunch of lines, I think. And so let's go and take a look at the tool that I had made to do this. So if I go and edit this thing, that'll bring up Workbench. All right. And I'd set this up to read from DWG and to write to a geodatabase. And so let's just take, again, a quick peek at the input data. I can right-click in here and say Inspect, and that brings up a very detailed viewing tool on this thing. And so we can, again, go like this, and I'll just zoom in. I'm holding down Shift so I can zoom, and I can click on these lines, and I see that the lines are not broken at anywhere. They're all like that, and I can go View options and say mark the text vertices. I can see this is where these water meters are located. And what I want to do actually is create a line that goes from the existing water feeds up to the meters and take these meter numbers and turn them into attributes in a point data set, and then also break this line everywhere that the that's close to a meter. So to do that, I use this transformer called a neighbor finder, often used in these CAD translations. It says, look, find me, these are the lines. For every line, find me as many meters as you can that are close, and then tell me what the closest point was on both the line and the meter. The meter will be the meter itself. And when I've got these points, now I can do things like I've done here and replace the feature that comes out with the spot that's close on the line and draw out to the meter a little feeder line. So that'll be this leg here. And then I can also take these points that were close to the lines and put them in this point on line overlayer thing, which is going to basically break the lines at every spot. Now, one thing I can do, if I don't want to actually go to my output file, I can redirect this to a Visualiser. That's what I did under Writers. Run this. We won't get a geodatabase now. It'll instead run it. Okay, that would be the output we would send to ArcGIS. And here I can now see that I've got these little lines. They're going out. I can actually double click on a coordinate here. Yep, it goes from there to there. That's right, it goes out to the thing. And there's the lines of the main network lines have all been broken so that we have a proper network now. And so that looks good. And so I'm going to go back to here. And you know, I think that I didn't erase my output last night, so I'm going to just make a new one, call it Water Network 2. And I'm going to turn this off now. Instead of redirecting to the Visualizer, I'm going to go ahead and run this thing. So the log rolls by. It's done. Again, I can look at the numbers of things and make sure, yeah, there's 91 meters and 91 feeder lines, so that all looks happy. And 168, 77 lines went in, 168 went out. That means we broke a lot of things. And so now if I go back to my area here, and let's take a look here. I should maybe refresh with an F5 on that. Yes, Water Network 2 is what we just did. So here's the meters, and they should have numbers on them. Yeah, meter number, which came from the text string. Let's see, how did it come from the text string again? Oh yeah, in here I went and said expose, if I type text, expose the text string. Show me the contents of that property inside of my workspace, and I mapped that into meter num, and I had designed that in this user attributes area here is where I put the meter number. Okay, so I've done that. That looks good. Back here, yep, lots of different meter numbers. And now if I also look at the network, here it is in all of its glory. I can select these pieces on this thing, and that looks all nice and believable. Even these little feeder lines looking good. Okay, so that's that example, a nice simple CAD to GIS. We added some good value there, completed a network, skimmed out some text as an attribute, very common types of scenarios. Okay, now we're going to go back the other way, GIS to CAD. And so let's see what I have as my raw data there. So if I look in the GIS to CAD, I've got, okay, it's just a couple of shape files of points where the dogs can be on leashes, and then this is the parks of Vancouver. So these overlay, not all parks can have dogs in them. If you don't like dogs, you might want to know which ones don't allow dogs. And what we want to do is make this into a CAD file to send to our dog-loving friends who don't have. Why would our dog-loving friends want a CAD file? Well, I guess maybe they have a, I know they have an iPhone app that shows a CAD file, and yeah, that's the ticket. So no, I don't want to save that. I got to go here, whoops, and to my friend our catalog, and I'm going GIS to CAD. Whoops, I don't want to run it. I want to look at how we did it. So let us edit it. All right, here it comes. Well, this is pretty simple, and I made use of this thing called the DWG Styler in this example. And let's take a look first. These are the park polygons. In this case, I can go and, if I'm going to AutoCAD, I can set fill patterns. So I went for steel, or let's go for stars. Sadly, Dmitry, I don't have AutoCAD on my computer, so I can't prove to the folks that this actually does fill it with stars. But we did a bunch of work to get all the different fill patterns. Cork is actually interesting, so let's do that instead. You can use different kinds of ways of dealing with polygons there, and text, and even blocks. So that's good with this one. And let's take a look here at this one here was kind of interesting. And so this is going to place a block. I filled in a template file, and then I can go and pick the blocks out of there. There is only one called Doggy Park, but if you had a bunch of blocks, you could pick it. And this is kind of wild, Dmitry, because normally the rotation is the number like 3 or 0 for that. But I'm using a new capability. This is new in 10.1 to do math. I could set it to an attribute value, or I can open up an arithmetic editor and do math. And take and drag out, for example, the random number generator and multiply it by 360. That should give me randomly assigned rotations. Would you believe?
Oh, this is absolutely great.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really hard to get back to previous version after you start using this.
Yes, because you can do, and in some of these, if we had places that take a text string, for example, we can, I don't think I've got one here. Maybe this is fonts, I think. Yeah, this is fonts. Text. Here we can go and if we were doing text, I can actually open an editor here and start to say, put together a whole concatenated together thing, hours like that, or I can switch to an advanced editor, and now I've got the ability to kind of drag things out like system parameters and different things like that, and concatenate strings at the same time as well. So anyway, I've done the random number thing, but one thing, Dmitry, that I wanted to just show the folks at home was this other capability to actually debug these things right inside. And that's this new feature inspection. I can right-click on a link, say inspection point, add it, and now that thing turns blue. And this one also has an inspection point on it. I'd added that last night. And now if I hit this thing that looks like the run button with a spider crawling on it, it'll bring up the feature inspector, I hope. Yeah, there it is. And so here comes our first thing going by. And this one's orange, tells me that I'm in that area, and I'm reading a point. It's showing me the point right there. And says we're going to make an insert, and here's the rotation is 221. That seems kind of random to me. And if we go again, 19, 239. So we're able to watch our data as it's going by and really understand what's going on. I'm going to go out here and say to disable this inspection point. Actually, I'm going to go so bold as to remove it. And now I'm going to run to the next inspection point, and now we're stopped up here, and we can watch as the various parks go by and see them as well. And we can zoom in and out in here, and so on. This can be very useful. Have you found it useful off and on, Dmitry?
Yeah, quite useful, yeah.
So now I can just say go ahead and run to the end, and it's all done. So we're done with that. And now, if I want to see the best CAD viewer I've got, honestly, is the built-in one that comes with Data Interop on this machine. So if I say, show me the parks, here they all are. And let's go zooming in someplace where there should be, whoop, I see some funny symbols in there. Let's take a look. How are our doggies doing? Well, that dog is kind of rotated that way. Let's go find, oh, that dog is, he's sort of upside down. Oh, this guy. So we can see that we actually have set a rotation, and we've done it randomly. You would probably set a rotation from other things, but this should show you how you can do blocks. All right. How are we doing? Okay. ASCII to GIS. This is an example using the CAT format, and I had an ArcGen file of bird locations and species of birds and then eggs that were in a column-aligned text format. And so if I go out to ArcGIS, take a look at that. Let me come back to here, kill this thing. No, I won't save that. And we look at what we got there for the data, ASCII to there. We've got the eggs in text. This is column aligned, so it is not something that can be easily parsed. This is a nice CSV going from a code to the species. And there is an ArcInfo generate file of points there. And what I want to do is find out, okay, for all these things in there, how many nests are in, how many eggs are in each nest, and what species are they, and so on. So if I edit this, this uses a new functionality called the Inline Querier, as well as the cat reader. Come on, baby, show me the, okay, here it is. So if we take a look, for example, I want to show this cat reader a little bit. If we go to readers and say update feature types for the cat reader, whoops, I gotta say, maybe I don't want to do that. I want to say cat, and then this thing here is in the eggs.text. If we hit the parameters, you can see that we can then go and piece or draw in where the things are, the field names are in the file, and I can go ahead and basically start to create the different columns that are in this thing and define the schema that way. That's the cat reader. And what I've done is I've piped them all into this inline querier, which lets me define some SQL statements that selects, as data is going by, we create a temporary database, and we can start to do things like, in this case, count the number of species, or count the number of nests per species. That's what this select does. And I can do things like this one, where I check, or I bring together all the eggs to their nests and do a three-way join. So if you're a SQL person, you can start to work with that. All the tables you defined are here. You can drag things out into here, and off it goes and does things. And I won't save these changes. Yes, I will discard the changes. And so that gives us this. And then we can end up outputting to GeoDatabase the results of basically some value add done with SQL in the middle of a workflow here. And so I'm just going to, I think my results are there from last night again, so I'm going to call this results 2. And I'm going to run this. Make a temporary database, do a bunch of selects, output it, and bam, it's gone. There's the results. You know what? I think that I have this thing, writers. Yeah, I'm going to the Visualiser. I didn't actually produce GeoDatabase, so I'm going to do that to a GeoDatabase. Done again, all these nice results. And if I go here, I can see if I hit function F5, there it is, results 2. And I've got the counts nicely there, yellow-bellied woodpecker and so on. I've got eggs where they are. I've got nest counts as well. These are the nests, these are the eggs. All that stuff is there. What I wanted to also show was if we wanted to, we could filter here, and I can go on these bird counts, and I can put in a tester. I select it and type tester, and it inserts it there. And there are new predicates in the tester. So if I wanted to say where the species contains the letters IN, and I'm going to change this to be results 3. Okay, and I'll run that. And so this is a filter now using the new powerful filtering capabilities in there. And see, we weeded out 5. And so there's quite a lot of different operators in these filters that are new in this release if you're an old 10.0 user. And let's hop back. And I think I've got results 3. I've got to refresh. Function F5. Results. Yeah, this is it. And so this nest counts, eggs, bird counts, smaller list. Those are the only ones that have IN in their names. House finch, morning dove. Yeah, it looks right. Okay, so that's my thing about ASCII to GIS. GIS to KML. We have very powerful capabilities to do with KML output. I'm just going to quickly show this. This is an example from our KML training course, reading some EPA monitored facilities, zip code boundaries. The key thing here is this KML Styler, which lets us set colors and various things like that. We can set properties here to extrude things as well. Very powerful. And I actually am just going to fire up, where's my Finder? Give me a Finder, please. On my desktop, there should be a results KML. Let's take a look in Google Earth. So we took some flat data, ran it through there, and we're zooming into here. And here are those babies, and they are, whoops, it killed Google Earth, but I think it's good enough. We won't send the report. So Google Earth died on that one, but that's my problem for my Mac. Google Earth in the Mac, maybe not so good, is the lesson here today. But you can produce good KML. XML, we're running out of time, but we have a wonderful example of this old lady who swallowed a fly. And it's an example of nested XML, and I don't think there's enough time to sing the song, Mark.
I think you're lucky. Or maybe the audience is lucky.
Maybe the audience is lucky. So if we just hop back to here, the idea of this one is we use this thing called an XML templater. We read all those pieces. So this was GIS2 XML. Let's edit it. I know an old lady who swallowed a fly. So the fly is actually in a Microsoft Access database, it looks like. So there's flies in there, there's spiders and birds and all kinds of creepy crawly things. And she swallows that, and we go through this thing called an XML templater, which basically contains a pattern for formatting the XML. And I'm just showing the XML writing side of things here, but it's very powerful. Mark, you used this to do something useful, actually, haven't you?
Yes, we've been doing quite a bit of work with for the utilities people in multi-speak and SimXML.
It's not just ladies and flies.
That's right, and Inspire.
Oh,
people
right.
And anybody from Europe would be interested in Inspire XML.
Right. Very, very powerful XML creation capabilities. The ability to take a relational model and make it into a nested XML model. Very powerful. I can do this right-click and say Open Containing Folder. That's a new thing as well. And here's the results of that. Here's the lady herself. And we'll open it up. And there it is in, I'm not sure what, Internet Explorer or something. And we can see that we actually had two ladies in here. This is Megan, and this one appears to be Marge. And here's the horses that she had, just one horse in there. And if we see that the horse actually has cows inside of it, dogs and cats and all sorts of things like that. So anyway, nested XML output by the data interop. So let's stop there and hop back. So that was XML. GIS to GIS. This is my friend Steve. You know, Steve, I'm not going to do too much on this because we are running out of time, but you can just mention quickly what's the deal of this polling stations thing.
Yeah, so what that is Esri Scott Open approached us to look at getting data into their local government data model. And on the ArcGIS forum, we've got a website application there, which is provided by Esri. And the whole idea behind this is the workspace will populate local government model with the information. In this case, the example we've got just pulls in some Excel data from the polling places location and links that up with the voting precincts and spits it into the local government model, so that this application that Esri provides on the ArcGIS online resource will be able to display it.
So I would guess all these municipalities want to get their hands on this before November the 7th.
That's right, big election time coming around.
So it's a very timely one, and there you go. And Steve, you're doing a whole hour on this thing soon enough, aren't you?
Yeah, we're going to be going through some of this.
Yes. So we'll leave it at that. But actually, you shouldn't underestimate the power of data interoperability just for going from Esri to Esri, from geodatabase to geodatabase, and rearranging things along the way. Steve, you've also done work with the Qnity maps, I think, haven't you?
We started doing some work on that. We've got a few FME articles that have some work done with that. But
yes.
The idea is to do some more work with that.
Yeah.
Get that up there on the ArcGIS online resource as well. Some examples of how you can load your data in the Qnity maps.
Because the bottom line is that many of these initiatives require a specific data model, a specific structure in geodatabase, and it's unlikely that people already have that. And so this gives them a very easy way, a no-coding way to get that done. And once it's set up, hey, it's pretty easy to reuse. So that, I think, completes our whirlwind tour of things related to the new things in data interop. There's literally hundreds of bits of functionality. I've just tried to give a survey along the way, touching on many of them. And so now we'll just ask a final question about how likely are you to be moving to 10.1? So just to get a feeling for when folks are going to be doing that. Oh, lots of you look like you're going to be doing it relatively soon. And that's looking great. So thanks very much for that. And I think we'll probably close the polls there. So we'll share the results just so that folks can see. Again, about a quarter of you are already using it, but many of you before 2012 is over, and if the Mayans are right, this might be your last chance to upgrade as well. But before 2012 is over, looks like you'll be doing it. and 15% of you saying you're not going to do it, and that's just okay as well. You don't have to use it, but if you do, we like it. Our friend Bruce Harold, I should give a tip of the hat. Bruce Harold at Esri, I don't know if he's tuned in today. He is the product manager that we work closely with to deal with issues with each release, what functionality is going in, and so on. I know Bruce Harold would love it if those 15% would want to do it. So let's see, I'm still showing the results there. We'll hide that. How can you find out more? Well, there's some webinars coming up. We mentioned already Dmitry's and Steve's. Wow, it's like an all Esri webinar month here at SAFE in August. You can look at the archive of all the old webinars if you have a moment. They're all up there in all their glory. Things to do with 3D and XML and so on. You may find useful. I'm excited about this movie that we made a number of years ago. If you want to introduce to somebody what data interop is about in 3 or 4 minutes, that's the fastest and best way. The numbers quoted in there are way understating the current truth, but the concept is 100% right. We do want to give you a chance to win training that's relevant to the data interop. These are FME trainings that we offer, but all the stuff you learn there transfers over 100% to data interop. And so if you are interested, I forget exactly how that works, but we'll just see. I think there's a poll. Okay, there's 25 seats up for grabs. And I think that there's training actually to do on September the 6th. There's one focused on the ins and outs of geodatabase.
Yes, FME working with Esri tools for FME, but that would be very applicable to anybody in interop spatial ETL tools.
Right, because it's how to do stuff, advanced things with relationships and domains and all those subtypes and stuff like that. All of that can be done in a very elegant way inside of the data interop without writing code, and you can get at it that way.
And also an FME desktop introduction later in September would be a good way to get started with the spatial ETL tool.
Right. So we'll close it there. And if you were one of the chosen few, the chosen 25, you'll be in touch. And we're saying here you got till August 31st. I think Roger will be in touch in the next day or so to figure out which course you want to go to. And there's the link to that. And again, highlighting the two relevant ones that are coming right up as well. And so we've got, look at that, a whole 5 minutes extra. So Mark, tell us what were some of the best or toughest questions of the day?
We had a DB2 user.
Whoa! Woohoo!
Let's be clear, non-spatial, I think, but there we are, one of the few DB2 users, so we'll have a happy harbinger.
Yes, the joke at SAFE is that we put 6 months of development into that, only to find out that all the DB2 users generally just go through SDE and don't, so they use our stuff through SDE and not directly to DB2. So we're always excited, well, always meaning 1 or 2 times we've been excited. When
it's not working for him though. So
oh, it isn't? Yeah. Oh no.
So he needs some help.
All right.
Or she, perhaps. I don't know who that was. 64-bit integration for the 10.1 coming in October.
You know, I don't know what the story is going to be on the desktop, but I can say that data interop is 64-bit on the server. The underlying FME technology has been 64-bit since probably 2006, and it's available even right now that way. But I know that on ArcGIS 10.1 server, it is a 64-bit data interop. We can definitely make it part of desktop, but we don't know how that integrates yet with geoprocessing. So if it's possible, we'll do it.
Yeah, probably won't be for October.
October. That's very soon. I don't think if you really want it in October, you may have to download the FME 64-bit and try our trial. Yeah. Or they can upgrade to ArcGIS Server. I'm sure Bruce Harold will be fine with that.
Yeah. And Bruce Harold asked, or mentioned that you didn't introduce parallel processing.
No, Bruce is right. So I will just show, I won't actually fire it up, but I'll go back out here. Thanks, Bruce. Let's pick, let me think. What's an interesting parallel process? What's one? Clipper? Does it have parallel processing?
Yep.
So it doesn't make any sense for what I'm doing here, but in some of these transformers, yes, they have a group by concept. So if I'd say I was going to group this by nest ID, and then I could say, basically, run each different group of same nest IDs in their own process. So I forget what these all mean. Extreme means really run it in lots of, as many processes as we can. Do you know what they mean, Dmitry?
Well, this is the number of processors multiplied by some coefficient.
I think
some
two.
multiplier, yes.
I think if we say aggressive, if you have a quad core, you'll get 8 processes running in parallel.
Yeah.
And Dmitry,
For that one transformation.
for this transformation only, and then you can actually apply this to custom transformers and so on, and that is new in here. Dmitry, you've done a bunch of research on this. What's your feeling in some circumstances versus others?
Well, you have your data volume really has to be quite big. Otherwise, you don't see any gains. You may even lose some. But in some cases, you go from say 50% to 300% faster than just using a single process.
Right. So anytime for this thing to work, you have to have a group by the groups that are, I guess, there's a lot of data in each group. So if you have groups that are only one feature per group, there's not enough computation, it might not be worth it. But if let's say you're grouping together roads by state, so you've got all the states of the US, all the roads of the US, and each road knows what state it's in, and now you want to do some work on those, you could group that by state, and now you'd get 50, and 50 groups, each with thousands of things. That would be worthwhile. They would run, if you did aggressive, they'd run in groups of 8 at a time, eight processes running in parallel. And so that would be an example where it would make sense.
And I think there are a couple of articles on knowledge base FMEpedia, so people could chase that down as well.
Right. So if I go to FMEpedia, again, if you're a data interop person, the stuff in here does make sense. And so what would you say? Look for
Parallel process.
Boy, parallel is tricky to spell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Top hit, and here you can see the whole story. And Dmitry has written some examples, and where's some results? Yeah. So here, what was this one doing? Oh, this was doing DEM generation. Here's a tin generation that I was doing, and seeing some gains generating tins. Oh wow, 5 minutes down to 28 seconds. For just flipping a switch. So it can be worth the buffering also showing some good improvement half the time, like 10 minutes to 5. So anyway, very good.
Okay. And lastly, maybe we can go to safe.com there and search for Esri, because quite a few people have asked what the differences are between FME and the interop extension. And so, yeah, click there. And somewhere down here, comparison of upgrading from ArcGIS. So there is a list there, and people have also asked, if I have FME, do I need the interop extension?
If you have FME, then you don't, because I don't have that on this computer, but there is a utility called the integration console. So you got to go into your start menu FME integration console. If you have FME Esri edition or higher, then you have the option to inject your FME into ArcGIS, and then all the things that you saw me do today will work. The data interop is a very full-featured subset of FME. It's actually cheaper in North America than FME. If you are always inside ArcGIS, then I think data interop is a great choice for you. If you do work with data that is not necessarily ArcGIS, then FME is probably a little better because you don't tie up an ArcGIS license while you're working with it. But the choice is yours. Many organizations, it's much easier to buy from Esri, and that's we don't want to stand in their way, and absolutely we encourage it. And we actually, in general, at SAFE, we want to support and help the data interop users even more, because all these resources we have do apply to you. Again, the data interop is as full a subset as we can make it legally of FME. And when we do our world tour events all over the world, we do get some data interop people. We don't have a way to actually reach you, but if you are on this thing, follow safe.com. When the data interop, or sorry, when the world tour comes to town, the stories that are told there will apply to you as well. All the things that people do, primarily they're showing the spatial ETL tools or workspaces, FME workspaces that rearrange data and produce amazingly productive results for them. All of that would be applicable to you as well. So I think we'll wrap it up there. And
one more good one is to mention the upgrading from the 10.0 to 10.1 data interop, the workspaces within the ETL.
They just work.
They just work, and we work very hard for backwards compatibility. So if you do experience some issues, please let us know. But
yeah, we work very hard. That's one of the 6 commandments here. We saved room for 4 more, but one of the original 6 commandments is if it worked yesterday, it better be working tomorrow. So yeah, that should be no problem. So Roger will be ensuring that you get an email in the next 24 hours or so that gives you links to all these demonstrations and workspaces and slides if you want to follow up on any of the stuff or dig in a bit more. That'd be great. I'm hoping maybe Bruce Harold has a better email address that folks can write to if they want sales information. As near as I could tell, it was info@esri.com. But otherwise, right to Bruce Harold himself. I'm sure is Bruce game for us to have him emailed?
he's just left. He had another meeting.
Okay. Well, that means we can tell everybody.
Yeah.
Go ahead. bharold@esri.com. Go ahead. You can call into support here or email us, and we'll work with Esri to get your answers. Or you can go ahead and email me, and I may not answer right away. I'm off to Sweden in a couple days for some world touring. Sweden and Copenhagen, Ireland, England. So if any of you are in any of those places, visit safe.com, sign up, and love to see you. And I think we've gone over time, but I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And thanks, Dmitry, for all your help. Are you ready for Thursday?
Please join us on Thursday.
Okay. All right. Bye.